Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espey.
First am I. Good evening. It's 5 o'clock on Monday, July the 15th. Are you still recovering from yesterday's football disappointment? Unless you're Scottish, of course. Welcome to your daily roundup of news on and from the Isle of Man. Coming up in the next half hour, the inquest into the death of a serving prisoner has reconvened at Douglas Courthouse. We'll bring you up to date with the details of what happened today. Also, before 5:30, the Environment Minister tells us why she overturned an appeal against a housing development in Braddon, and some great news from three competitors who took part in the riding for the Disabled National Championships at the weekend. We'll also keep you posted on anything to look out for on your way home, and you can text us 166 177. First, let's join Siobhan for the Man Benham news headlines.
Fast am I. The inquest into the death of a serving prisoner at the Isle of Man prison has been reconvened. 46-year-old Christopher Peter Corkill was found dead in his cell on the 24th of February 2023. 7 jurors were impanelled this morning at Douglas Courthouse. Police are appealing for information after a man was taken to hospital in the UK after a crash on the Mountain Road yesterday. It happened at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the area of the 27th milestone. A Ford Transit tipper van and a black Honda motorbike were involved in the incident. Motorists heading through Onken this evening are reminded that traffic is one way all this week while resurfacing work takes place there. Vehicles on the main road will be heading northbound in the direction of Douglas to Ramsey. Further afield, it's understood human remains found in Tenerife are those of missing British teenager Jay Slater. The 19-year-old from Lancashire went missing 4 weeks ago. A man's appeared in court charged with the double murder of 2 men after human remains were found in 2 suitcases in Bristol. Officers received a report of someone acting suspiciously on Clifton Suspension Bridge last Wednesday. And the King and Queen were briefly pulled away from an engagement in Jersey following a false alarm. Camilla was eating ice cream when a member of the royal team whispered something to her. The visit resumed shortly afterwards. They're your headlines. I'll be back with your news at 6.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Get your washing in because it's cloudy with occasional outbreaks of rain arriving later this evening. Temperatures will be around 18 Celsius at first with a light, mainly easterly breeze, and that will gradually back to the northwest. Outbreaks of rain, though, continuing through the night, so you don't need to water your garden. That's good. As the northwest wind freshens a touch, minimum overnight temperatures will be around 12. Now, any remaining rain will soon clear away tomorrow morning. Sunny intervals developing and top temperatures tomorrow of 17 with a moderate or locally fresh northwest wind, which will ease by the evening. And just looking ahead to Wednesday, dry with sunny spells and light southerly winds. Temperatures again of around 18. Sunset this evening will be at 9:42. Sunrise tomorrow morning, 7 minutes past 5.
Secure tomorrow today with Man Benham's guidance on powers of attorney and more. Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
TE Carbon provide new memorial stones, grave renovations, new inscriptions and fire hearths. Visit us at Hope Street, Castletown or at Broadway, Douglas, or call 844 440. TE Carbon, here when you need us.
Ambitions Recruitment Consultants, covering all business sectors in the Isle of Man. Register online or email your CV to info@ambitions.co.im or ring 614 841. Ambitions, for all your recruitment needs, however big or small.
We all need peace of mind. That's where Peace of Mind Manx Will Writing Services can help you. From just £149 plus VAT. Call 671 001 or go to peaceofmind.co.im.
Most builders start with a hammer and saw. Manx Construction start with ideas and imagination. For new build, extension or home office, Manx Construction offer full service from planning to completion. Call Tony on 452 688.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
It's coming up to 5 past 5. As we heard in the headlines, the inquest into the death of a serving prisoner at the Isle of Man prison has been reconvened at Douglas Courthouse today. 46-year-old Christopher Peter Corkle was found dead in February last year. He'd taken his own life. I should say at this point we will be discussing some issues which some people may find upsetting. Tessa Hawley, news editor, joins me in the studio now. And Tessa, you were in court today. First of all, can you tell us why this inquest is being held in front of a jury?
So inquests are heard before a jury if a death occurs in prison or police custody. In this case, Mr Corkle was found unresponsive in his cell on B Wing on the morning of the 24th of February 2023. His cause of death was recorded as asphyxia due to suffocation, with a forensic physician saying he'd likely been dead for around 8 hours before he was found. Jurors were told today that Mr Corkle's death was the third at the Isle of Man prison since 2021.
So what is it then that the jurors are tasked with doing?
Ultimately, the 7 jurors will determine a verdict into Mr Corkle's death. Deemster Graham Cook, who's presiding over the inquest, reminded them all this morning that this is not a trial. He told them this inquest is an inquiry. You are the judges of fact in this case.
So a number of people did give evidence at the inquest today. What can you tell us about that?
So we heard from the prison officer who found Mr Corkle just before 8 a.m. on the day in question. He was responsible for unlocking the cells and he raised the alarm, but efforts to resuscitate him were unsuccessful. We also heard from Mr Corkle's partner of 3 years who described him as vulnerable, but said his death was completely unexpected. When she gave her evidence, she told jurors, "I kept him safe and he's died in their custody. It's pretty shocking."
Well, you said there that his partner described him as vulnerable, but did prison officers have any concerns about his mental health at that time?
It appears not. The officers who gave evidence today said whilst Mr Corkle had been under extra checks during previous periods of incarceration, there were no active concerns at the time of his death and he wasn't receiving any extra monitoring. That meant that from lockup at 5:45 on the evening of the 23rd of February to being unlocked the next morning, no additional checks were carried out on him.
So what happens now?
Tomorrow, jurors will continue to hear evidence before being ultimately sent out to consider the information and then record their verdicts.
Tessa, thank you very much indeed. 7 minutes past 5. We're just going to take a quick look further afield for a story that has been dominating the headlines in recent weeks. And I understand that a post-mortem is underway after human remains, believed to be those of missing British teenager Jay Slater, were found in Tenerife. Lancashire police are today saying that the evidence strongly suggests it is the body of the 19-year-old. His possessions and clothes was found nearby, close to where he was last seen 4 weeks ago. The author and travel writer Joe Corley is in Tenerife and he's been speaking to Sky News.
On the island, it's one of shock, obviously sympathy. It's a tragic end. The community in Tenerife have been fully invested in this. It has been the talk at any social get-together. Yeah, there's a whole lot of sympathy within the expat community here. I think the surprise from those that don't really know that area, who found it hard to understand how he was found now, and it was relatively close to the village. But from those that know the area, like myself, in some ways it's not a surprise. This is treacherous terrain. There are parts that are inaccessible, very dangerous, and only for experienced mountaineers and the hikers. It was entirely possible this is what happened. In fact, it is entirely probable this is what happened. I know that it was very close to where Jay's phone was last located, the last ping from his phone, which is probably maybe half an hour walk from the village. The most probable route that Jay took was going to be downhill, and people thought maybe he just headed to the ocean. He's got nowhere near that. I mean, the ocean is a 3-hour walk at best if you're experienced and you have the right gear to get to the ocean, and where the body was found was much closer to the village than the ocean.
That's Joe Corley, who's in Tenerife and has been talking to Sky News. Coming up to 10 past 5, planning permission given to develop 300 houses on land just past Quarterbridge should be seen as part of a much bigger picture. Now, that is according to the DEFA Minister, Claire Barber. She's been asked why this permission on a large greenfield site was instead of favouring a brownfield site.
This is exactly why people need to get involved in the area planning processes. So where a site has been essentially zoned for residential use, and it may be that that's a piece of greenfield land, then when it comes to planning, that is a significant part of the consideration, that it's already been zoned for that purpose. There's also some sites that are held back, and they're only if there's a sort of strategic need. So there's a number of different ways that things can be zoned. Now, that doesn't detract from the work that is in train, as I say, through projects such as the Island Infrastructure Scheme to try and get brownfield sites developed. But they're also very different. So, when we all reflect on what house or what property we want, there's times in your life when having an apartment in town is absolutely the right thing for you. There's also times in your life where you think, actually, what I want now is something maybe a little bit out of town with some garden area. And we have to understand how that can work on the sites we have available. So I absolutely understand people's concerns, but what I would say is when those area plans are pulled together, it's a really comprehensive piece of work that allows input from a huge range of people. And there's consultation at the minute ongoing around the North and West area plan that really tries to understand the impacts both from a local authority perspective, from a local resident perspective, from developers' perspectives, and seeks to make sure that where we are zoning some of that green land, we're only doing it in areas where that's appropriate for our future need. So in this case, that was a piece of land that had been zoned for residential use. So it was a reasonable understanding that at some point an application would come through for it.
That's the Environment Minister, Claire Barber. Let's turn our attention to business with a bit of a sporty twist this evening, and a new scheme has been launched aiming to provide vital assistance to grassroots sports clubs across the Isle of Man. The Manx Sports Boost is an initiative from Flutter International. Sue Hammett from the company tells us what it's all about.
We recognise that grassroots sports clubs are a vital part of our local communities, and we just want to help play our part in contributing to the very vibrant sports community here on the island. As a company, we've operated a similar scheme in the UK for a few years, but island sports clubs have never been eligible for the grants, and we wanted to change that. So we've now made it possible for clubs to apply for a grant of either £500 or £1,000 between now and the end of August.
Now, there are plenty of companies here on the Isle of Man that offer support to sports across the island in many different ways. So how does this maybe differ to maybe what other organisations are doing?
I think what we're looking at is trying to help those smaller clubs, the ones on the island that maybe struggle with funding and visibility. Any club can apply, but we're looking at those really small clubs that maybe we don't get to hear much about. We would like, because of the nature of our business, we do have to have the club with 18 years and over as well, not predominantly under 18s, but we will be open to support any clubs on the island if they meet the criteria. There's a simple form for them to complete and return to us.
In your view as well, the grassroots clubs in whatever sport it may be on the Isle of Man or elsewhere, just how vital are they?
Absolutely. I mean, South Rob, there's a really, really strong sports community on the island, and it's the very fabric of any community, to be fair, and it gives, a great outlet for young people and adults as well. It's a great way of meeting people. Yes, it could support the next, maybe the next Mark Cavendish of the future or someone like that. But we're really here just to kind of give those clubs a little bit of a boost, help them through, what is still a difficult time for a lot of clubs. We're still dealing with what happened during the pandemic. A lot of clubs suffered. It's really for us just to give back to the Isle of Man community a little bit.
That is Sue Hammett from Flutter International talking to Rob there. You can find out more at manxradio.com, and as Sue said, the deadline for applications is the 31st of August. Now, the stock market report brought to you by Ramsey Crookall. They tell us that dollar saw safe haven gains. Sliding yen stayed on intervention watch. Gold has eased as investors seek more cues on the Fed's rate path. So gold currently stands up 1.02% at $2,435. Meanwhile, oil extended losses as dollar strengthened following that Trump attack at the weekend. Brent oil currently stands up 0.06% at $85. A short time ago, the FTSE 100 was off 0.85% at 8,182. The latest from the Dow Jones, it was up 0.68% at 40,273. And the Nasdaq a short time ago was up 1.10% at 18,602.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
So everything okay down at the airport and the steam packet this evening? The main thing is on the roads, and especially in Onchan, there's that resurfacing that's going on through the main road in the village, which is now one way for traffic heading in a northbound direction. The road is closed to southbound traffic. That's traffic heading towards Douglas between the post office and Corkles roundabout. Now, for the Douglas-bound traffic, there are signed diversions, as you probably know if you go that way. They're via Avondale Road, Signpost Corner and Governor's Bridge. You can get to Corkles Garage forecourt if you go from the direction of Douglas only, and access to the parade of shops opposite Corkles is available from Summer Hill Road only, and there's also a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit throughout the works in place. There's going to be other things happening at the weekend. We'll remind you about that nearer the time. But if you spot something when you're out and about this evening and it's safe and legal to do so, let us know what it is, 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. Now, the Steam Packet is asking for the views of Manx residents to help it be a better service for the Isle of Man. Lewis Foster joins me now, and Lewis, you've got a few more details on this. What do we know about what the Steam Packet's doing here?
Well, all we know so far is what's been shared to the Steam Packet's Facebook page. It's an advert saying it's putting together some focus groups next week on the Wednesday and Thursday evenings at a hotel in Douglas. It's not revealed exactly where that venue will be, only that those taking part will receive cash as a thank you for attending.
And that's around £70, I believe.
That's right, something to cover the travel to and from the venue, the Steam Packet says.
So essentially, is this some sort of market research?
Yes, exactly that. And the Steam Packet assures in this post that it wants a range of positive and negative views on the company. So they want a mix of genders, age groups, and people in a range of occupations, and those who are students or retirees. It's also looking, it says, for those who've recently travelled via the boat and those who haven't for a while.
So it could pretty much be anyone then?
Pretty much, yeah, it sounds like it. The one condition they've outlined, though, is that you must live on the Isle of Man, and you will have to go through a 10-minute screening process over the phone. I have asked for more details on that, but the company hasn't been able to share anything with me yet. But if you are interested in taking part, you're asked to email juliet@nexusfieldwork.co.uk. That's the company behind this, and you can find that email address via our article at manxradio.com.
Lewis, thank you very much indeed. 17 minutes past 5, and 3 Isle of Man competitors are being congratulated after taking part in the Riding for the Disabled Association National Championships in Gloucestershire at the weekend. Donna Dreyer is one of their coaches at RDA Isle of Man and tells us how proud they are of their local riders.
It was an absolutely incredible experience for everyone involved, and we are super proud of all of the riders that were able to take part. It was a great opportunity, and they did really, really well. So we entered them for Countryside Challenge, which is almost like an assault course on horseback, and they each had their dressage test. So they each managed to complete their dressage test. Countryside Challenge was wonderful. They all rode in that and placed in those categories as well.
How important was it from your side of things that there was no focus on, say, results and performances, but just making sure those who took part got as much as they could out of the experience.
Yes, that was totally our primary goal. We thought that it would be good just to experience riding in a different country for the first time, riding horses that they didn't know outside in a massive environment. So that was our primary goal, and our riders did an incredible job.
How proud did it make you as coaches feel for how well they adapted to everything?
Yes, no, it was an amazing thing to see. There were many happy tears shed, and we really appreciated the opportunity to watch our riders achieve what we know that they can, and super proud of them.
What's next for Riding for the Disabled Isle of Man?
Yeah, so we are taking a bit of a break over the summer holidays in terms of riding sessions. However, there's lots of very fun things coming up. We've got a stand at the Royal Show, and then looking forward to our next season of riding as the school term starts.
What brilliant news. That's Donna Dreyer from RDA Isle of Man reflecting on the success of those 3 riders from the island who took part in those national championships over the weekend. Coming up to 5:20, we're going to stay with the good news theme because over the weekend, 2 fundraisers took on a unique challenge. You might have heard this on Update on Friday. They cycled the TT course on an old school tandem bike while dressed as Elvis. Anthony Long and Les Coates from Capital International were hoping to raise as much money as possible for an orphanage in Tanzania, and Les joins me on the phone now. I have to ask you first of all, Les, how are you feeling?
Well, to be honest, Beth, my legs are still shaking and my knees are weak. I can't seem to stand on my own 2 feet.
Oh, that's too good, Les, too good. First of all, just very briefly, would you just give us an overview of what the charity is and why you wanted to support it?
Yes, absolutely. So the Huruma Orphanage is based in Tanzania, and it's an orphanage that Capital International helped to protect and maintain a few years ago. And since then, we've had annual trips to continue to support the orphanage in terms of basic maintenance and support, as well as helping to educate the children who range from 4 to 17. And most have been orphaned following the death of one or both of their parents. So it's quite a humbling thing to do. And we set off at the end of August for a week to work with the orphanage there.
Now, you were aiming to raise £1,500. How have you got on so far with that?
Well, thanks to the amazing support we've had both from Capital International colleagues, friends and the general public, the donations have been amazing. So between Anthony and I, we've actually raised over £4,000 now, which is absolutely amazing. So I just want to thank everyone who's supported us and donated. That is an amazing achievement.
The wonder of you two. No, that was terrible. We'll move on. Now, over the weekend, you did stop at a few pubs and cafes along the way. And I just want to know what the reaction was when you walked in all kitted out as Elvis.
Well, when I walked into the Swan in Ramsey, I got a stone-faced reply from the landlady there. She sort of took it all in a stride, as if Elvis appears every day into the pub. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh, we had Elvis in last week and he's drank all the Elvis juice, so you'll have to have a Coke." And she also had a hound dog upstairs that she brought down. So we had some pictures with Elvis, obviously outside the building, with a hound dog. And then when we got to the Cregney Bar, we had a lot of Kentucky rain. The heavens opened in that last leg coming down from the Kate's cottage. So that was quite a challenge. But yeah, everyone was so supportive and so welcoming. It was amazing to see everyone out there supporting us.
And just finally, there was a karaoke bus full of your colleagues following you round, I understand. And I just wonder if that was encouraging, or were you just trying to cycle away from some questionable singing?
Yeah, it was very questionable, but they were actually amazing. So they kept overtaking us and stopping some way in front of us and then cheering as we went past. And we were heading up the mountain, and that was the one point where I thought we were going to have to get off and push. It was really hard. But the bus stopped at Guthrie's, and they were singing and shouting and cheering and helped us get over that last hump of the mountain onto the flat bit. And then we managed to get home from there. So they were absolutely brilliant.
Wonderful, Les. Great to talk to you. You can find out much more about this story at manxradio.com and find a link to the Just Giving page as well. 23 minutes past 5. We're going to stay with good news. A second half comeback saw FC Isle of Man claim a 3-2 win against Ashton Town in their latest pre-season friendly in Ramsey at the weekend. Ravens manager Paul Jones spoke to the club's official media at full time.
Very different sort of game, wasn't it, to the one last week against Brackley. So just pleased that we, although things weren't quite clicking and weren't quite how we wanted them to be second half and even first half to a certain extent, just really happy that they found a way. That was the most important thing, really. But yeah, lots to work on, and Ashton came and gave a really good account of themselves. So yeah, positive results and lots to learn, which is the most important thing in pre-season, and probably a good game to have after Brackley so people don't get carried away with themselves. It wasn't an easy game. We probably needed that, so it was really good. They all acquitted themselves well, and it'll have done them a world of good and does the group a world of good to have a good account of ourselves against North West Counties League opposition. So yeah, it was really good to see them. I thought Adam Espey did really well up front as well, and Ryan Garland's had an opportunity there, taking it and done very well. And I think you can say that through the group. I think some of the more established players, maybe were trying a bit too hard at times to show how good they were, and maybe just needed to, as they did towards the end of the game, take more of a breath and settle down a little bit and just play to the shape and the structure that we had. So we've had a chat about that. But no, it's really good to have an opportunity to give everybody a decent run out, and but this week onwards it's very much about preparing a team for the first game of the season. Thank you to Ramsey for putting us on and to helping make this happen. And yeah, it was great to see so many people down and supporting the lads, and seeing us ultimately win a game that in other moments last season and the season before we probably wouldn't have fought back into. So that shows a good trait, and I hope that we can keep doing that through the season.
That is the Ravens manager, Paul Jones. Well, speaking of sport, we're joined in the studio now by our sports editor, Rob Pritchard. I have to ask you first, Rob, were you watching the England game yesterday?
I was indeed, and not quite for England, but very well done to Spain. In my opinion, the best team on the night.
Okay. Right. Tell us about the other sport then, Rob.
I will indeed. Well, we'll stick with football because it was wins all round for the Isle of Man's senior national football sides during a senior series of fixtures which took place over the weekend. In a selection of on-island games against Welsh club NFA FC, the Isle of Man women's side won both their games 9-0 and 7-1, whilst the senior men's squad were narrowed 2-1 winners in their only match. The Isle of Man under-18 boys were also in action, and they were part of a 3-3 draw. Well, yesterday, the Manx women's team made it 3 wins in as many days, as they also took a comprehensive 4-0 victory away against Lionesses Supporters FC. Looking to cycling, and Mark Cavendish was once again successful in navigating the challenges of a mountain stage at this year's Tour de France in the last 24 hours. The 39-year-old finished inside the time cut on stage 15 yesterday afternoon with the help of his teammates, just over 51 minutes behind stage winner and current Tour leader Tadej Pogacar. Today's been a rest day for the Tour, and Cavendish will return to action at around 12:05 UK time tomorrow for the 16th stage, covering 187 kilometres from Grusan to Nîmes. Elsewhere yesterday, fellow Manx pro Lizzie Holden concluded her campaign at this year's Giro d'Italia Women. Holden herself finished 78th overall, whilst in the team standing she and UAE team ADQ placed 7th. And in golf, siblings Robert Noon and Emma Noon have been crowned winners of this year's Isle of Man Golf Championships. In the finals of the 2024 event at Mount Murray Golf Club on Sunday, Robert Noon overcame Liam Cowan, whilst Emma Noon won her last 2 battle with Shirley Price. For Robert, it's a 3rd successive Isle of Man Championships men's title. On the way to victory this year, he claimed victories over Freddie Dancox in the last 16, Chris Neen in the quarter-final stage, and Peter Glover in the last 4. Meanwhile, Emma Noon's win over Price in the ladies' final followed an impressive semi-final display in which she knocked out defending champion Kaylee Dawson, who'd been targeting a 3rd straight title. The union says it also believes this to be the first time ever that a brother and sister have won both championship crowns in the same year.
How brilliant. We've got some really talented sports people over here, haven't we?
We have indeed. I mean, you look at the golf side of things, had a very good time at the Island Games last year as well, and Robert Noon and Liam Cowan, funnily enough, were teammates in Guernsey last year as well, so they know plenty about each other from the golf scene.
Rob, thank you very much indeed. That is all from Update this evening. If you missed any part of this programme or you'd like to listen again at your leisure, who wouldn't? It will shortly be available as a podcast at manxradio.com. And just speaking of podcasts, there are a host to choose from in the podcast section of our website. Everything from archive programmes and our satirical IM1 series, which takes a light-hearted look at ourselves and the island as a whole, to jazz, folk and Manx radio drama, and also the sportscasts as well, some of the sports interviews with some of the people you hear about in the news. Coming up next, it's Agenda with Phil Gaughan. Then Chris Kinley will be here with Greatest Hits from 6 p.m. And as ever, if you've got a story, we'd love to hear from you. newsroom@manxradio.com is the email address to get in touch with. Breakfast with Ben will be back with you at 6 tomorrow morning, and I'll be back here at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So whatever you're doing, have a lovely evening.